Well, welcome to another Cutting Edge show. I'm Omar Neal, your host, one of the hosts, and of course, I'm the former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, and host of the syndicated radio talk show, You Got the Power. Today, we are so pleased to be again on the cutting edge to have such an incredible conversation, one that obviously has many dimensions and nuance. And so we are going to unpack the violence subject, and breaking the cycle of violence is the subject of conversation today. We got a really great panel to help us unpack this complex subject. We got an old friend, a brother from another mother, Aaron Perry, who is a former police officer and a nationally recognized men's health advocate. This brother, after finding out that he had type 2 diabetes, he went on a mission to not only to restore his life and to improve his health, but he wanted to improve the health of other people. So we're so good to have him back with us. We have a new friend of ours who's new to the cutting edge, but not new to the Hair Network. Kristen Hobbs. She is an implementation epidemiologist and health equity subject matter expert at the Equity Studio LLC. And so we are so elated to have her. And then we have Dr. Rabiatu Barry. She's been with us before. She's going to be kind of a staple. She's a staple with the cutting edge. She's assistant professor in family science at the University of Maryland. So she's one of us as well. So again, it's going to be a really, really great show. But I don't do this show by myself. I got this brother that is from another mother as well. He is none other than Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. We call him Dr. T amongst these parts. He's a professor at the University of Maryland School of Public Health and director of the Maryland Center for Health Equity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my co-moderator and friend, Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. Hey, Dr. T, how you doing, man?
I'm feeling really good. Not only because I'm in a space with you, Mayor, but I also finally turned grades in today.
Oh, man. So it's a hallelujah day.
Hallelujah. And you know what, Mayor?
I don't want you shouting now. Don't shout.
I just want you to know I got so much hope and inspiration from these students. These are undergraduate students. And the course I teach is called Redesigning Healthcare to Meet Community Need. They literally have to go out into the neighborhoods, go into grocery stores, laundromats, barbershops, and meet people where they are and bring back a story. And then by the end of the semester, come up with a solution for that person.
Wow.
And it's amazing with the final presentations. And I want to thank all of the folks out there who may be listening who came to final presentations. We actually opened the classroom up to the Hair Network and the Wellness Warriors. And so they're getting feedback from people all over the country, and they truly appreciate it. All made possible, believe it or not, through a reimagination of how we use this technology through Zoom.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, I got an opportunity to meet your students, and they are, in fact, incredible. So congratulations, and I hope everyone got it. Well, I'm not going to say. I hope everybody got the grade they earned. Let me put it that way. All right, okay. All right, here we go.
What a show we got tonight, though, man.
We got a great show tonight. We can't tell people, and because people will be under the impression that we're doing this by ourselves. So can we at least tell people who run this thing behind the scene? We call them the team behind the scene. It's headed up by Meg Jordan, our technical director. Assistant technical director is Maggie Daly. Saraya Khan is our social media coordinator, and Elijah Pugh Jr. sound designer. Those are the people who are the people who make it possible for us to be on the air and in all of these other spaces. We have a lot of places that you can find us. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and others. And of course, we'd like for you to like, share, and just tell everybody about the Cutting Edge, because what we do here is we talk about all things COVID-19, health, and beyond. And so, this is a special time for us. Each and every week, even when we're not on the air, you can catch us on our newsletter. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and so you can keep up to date on all of the activities of the Cutting Edge. Not only do you get the previous show each week, you also get snippets or vignettes, if you will, of our previous guests, where we take just profound things that they say and put them in bite-sized pieces so that you can get a chance to digest great truths that come from our wonderful guests.
And share on your social media platforms.
Absolutely. So when you're doing 2 minutes, it's a little different than an hour and a half. So that's why we do it that way.
And it's a great newsletter with information even beyond the show. Maggie Daly does a wonderful job.
She does an absolutely wonderful job. Dr. T, are you ready to meet our guests?
I'm ready, and I want to do a little bit of a preamble simply to say that this topic can be a trigger for some in our audience out there.
Right.
And the whole point is that it's also in the paper every day. So it's something we have to be able to talk about honestly and openly. And to have the guests that we have and yourself, Mayor, who's also a former police officer, and you train police officers. I think we have the right people to bring this topic to the forefront. And I know our barbers and stylists out there know this either firsthand or indirectly from their own lived experience or from the people who sit in their chair.
Right. I'm glad that you made that comment, because you're sensitive to that, and we are. We recognize that when you're talking about issues like violence, that it can be a trigger for some people, but hopefully we can put it in a way that it makes sense. Obviously, it's not a subject that we can ignore, because we see it every day, as you mentioned, on the news, and even in our communities. Even if it's not on the news, you experience it. So obviously, it's something that we need to talk about, and we will hit on it head on.
That's right.
With candid, authentic conversations. All right, here we go. Let's rock and roll. Bring up our first guest. Our first guest is none other than Aaron Perry.
All right.
He's a former police officer, a brother that did the kind of work that I did, and still train police officers. He's a nationally recognized men's health advocate. And when I say men's health advocate, this brother, his advocacy is so strong that he develops and creates a health clinic, a free health clinic, right, for men of color primarily who do not have insurance. Come on, man. You got it. He took his pain and made it pleasure. He took his pain and then turned it to purpose.
Yes.
Right. He took his situation and say, I don't want anybody else to experience what I experienced without having somebody who can advocate for them. I mean, he not only does he talk the talk, he also walk the walk. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our friend, Aaron Perry. Hey, man, snap him up as he
comes. Snap him up.
Love you, baby. What's happening, man?
I appreciate the introduction. I'm that guy that kind of sits on the sideline. I don't need all that, but I'll take it this time.
Man, your modesty is not necessary for the brothers, man. We know who you are. I got to tell everybody else who you are. And we understand your modesty. That's fine. But the fact that you're living a purpose-filled life, Aaron, that's so important, man.
Yes.
That you're not just here. You're here to be of service. And it's somewhere I read, I don't read, but it says you take the greatest among you and then you make them the servants, right? Right.
That's right.
So So thank you for serving. That's all I'm saying. And if that made you feel uncomfortable, well, that's too bad.
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm really good.
But Mayor, you're absolutely right. Because in Dr. King's speech on the drum major instinct, he said, it's okay to want to be the best. It's okay to brag about being number one if you do that to serve others. And Aaron, what you have accomplished in creating a men's health clinic, a free clinic, I've had a chance of visiting your place. Your social media presence is huge. You're an influencer. And I think that you've made the impossible possible. We're talking about a man who's a police officer, no MD behind his name, who created and opened a clinic.
Yeah.
With medical services. Come on now.
Yeah. I mean,
Congratulations.
You got to get a brother some props for that. That's all. We're through now. We're not going to do it no more until the next 5 minutes. Go ahead. Tell us how you've been doing, man.
Life is good. I can't complain. We're just doing the work that, clearly a higher power put me on this path, because there were so many different directions that I could have gone. And I sometimes wake up and I think, how did I end up here? But I'm good with it, because when you have guys coming into your clinic because they've been told by every health system that they need to have a below the knee amputation, and they come to you out of frustration as a last resort. And this is a real story. He's given me permission to share it. But he came to us and he said that every single health system wants him to have a below the knee amputation. And I said, brother, if that's what they told you, I'm not sure our clinic can help you, but let's give it a try. First thing that we did is we actually had a conversation with him. I said, man, why are you so against saving your life? Because if you don't have this procedure, you could potentially lose your life. He said, Aaron, not a single person asked that question. The reason that I'm so against it, because every single person that I've known that had an amputation, they were dead in 2 years.
Wow.
That I have 10 kids. I can't leave them. And so we rolled up our sleeves and we started to work with him. And the first thing that I started asking was basic questions: man, how's your living? How was your employment? How was your income? He had just received an eviction notice. He was unemployed. And so I looked at him, I said, we can help you with all of that.
Wow.
And that's what we did. We started rolling up our sleeves and we helped him. But I requested, for 4 years, I requested a Black physician, because that's the number one thing that was requested by all the guys in the barbershop, particularly those guys when we do our blood pressure screenings, cholesterol, and it's elevated or it's stroke level. They all requested to have access to a Black doctor. And so I talked to every health system, and I felt that they were being honest. They say, we're really trying to recruit. We just can't get guys in. We opened up our free clinic, and within 2 weeks, a Black doctor found us.
Wow.
And he's been working with us since.
Right.
And what I can also tell you is that we wrapped our arms around this young man. And basically he was really struggling with a lot of issues, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of trauma. But we wrapped our arms around him, and within 4 months, we had a housing for him. He was coming in regular. We actually developed a diabetic foot care clinic just for him.
Wow.
And it's one of our signature programs now. And that program is led by nursing students. So the guy's going through our diabetic foot care clinic. He comes pretty regularly. Now, I will say that sometimes he comes just to socialize, but that's okay. That's what we're there for.
That's what you go to barbershop for, man. Everybody don't go to barbershop for their hair, the hair salon. They go to socialize too,
Right.
Aaron built the clinic right next to the barbershop.
Yeah, and so so our Black physician got with this young man, and we just started working with him, rolling up our sleeves. We got him housing. He's employed now. He is, he has a lot of kids, and we talked about that, but we're working with him in terms of just helping him get a little more stable. Mm-hmm. Long story short, 8 months within our clinic, a black physician recommended a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which was about 10 miles from my clinic. And so we ended up getting that young man over there twice a week. You know, he goes through that program, and it basically does something with the healing of the tissue. And maybe some of the physicians would know about that. 9 months into our clinic, our volunteer physician called me at home, and she said, Aaron, I just looked at his wound, and it's now the size of a dime. When he came to us, his wound was practically covering this entire foot. His wound had closed, and she said these words, and I'll never forget it. She said, Aaron, he will not need an amputation. And I owe that to location, Black physician, but being next to the barbershop as well, because a lot of the guys from the barbershop would just pop in to just say hi. When they were doing it in the beginning, I said, man, you know, that's a HIPAA violation. You just can't walk in the clinic. But the patient said it's okay. And so they just started coming in, hey, just checking on you, how you doing, you know, need anything? And 9 months into his care, he does not need an amputation. Every single health system in our community told him he needed to have a below the knee amputation. And if he waited too long, it would have to be an above the knee amputation. We know that location, having care in a culturally specific place, in a place where guys trust, they respect, and they feel comfortable, that was the key.
Well, that's a powerful story, man. And thank you so much for your obedience, because I know, you know, you could have done many other things. So this has to be a calling for you. So thank you for your obedience, man. It's good to have you with us, and good to have you here to talk about this, being a former law enforcement officer, as you know, we're going to delve into this issue of violence and what this looks like as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Just very briefly, because I don't want the audience to lose the significance of what Aaron said when all the MD medical experts were ready to amputate this man's leg. It took a lot of high touch to close that wound. It took him feeling like he was worth saving to be consistent. But do you have any idea that one case, hundreds of thousands of dollars saved from the healthcare system, but more importantly, his quality of life? He's not in a wheelchair or with a prosthesis. His quality of life is dramatically changed. And if he keeps working, even some of the consequences of advanced diabetes can be reversed. You've proven that we can reverse severe symptoms and even some of the other effects. Because if you close that wound, that meant that that toxic environment that diabetes creates throughout the body is reduced. You improved his heart health. You improved all aspects of him. Mm-hmm. And that should not be lost on our barbers and stylists, that when we do these kinds of interventions, an N of one person, the lessons we learn can be applied across the board. So Aaron, I'm hoping that we can help you in any way we can to tell that story to clinicians and others. Don't give up on our people.
All right.
Don't make assumptions because he's unemployed and doesn't have money that he won't follow up on care. Let's just take his leg. They made assumptions and you proved them wrong. Hallelujah, brother.
Man, you got Dr. T riled up, man. You see
Hey, listen, we had a senator here in Maryland, and I can tell his story. It won't be long because here's a senator, state senator, was obviously access to health care. But he'll tell you, as he told me in the podcast, he didn't listen. And so at some point, we have our people listening now. The barbers and the stylists have said, coming out of the pandemic, we couldn't go in to persuade people because they had their minds made up. But now they're listening and they're ready to take charge of their own health. That's why the cutting edge is so important. Thank you, Aaron.
Absolutely. Let's bring up our another guest. We have. I'm just meeting her for today, and you know, if a picture is 1,000 words, then she's a million words because Kristen has such a beautiful personality and a beautiful smile. Kristen Hobbs, who is MPH and a CPH, she works with she's an implementation epidemiologist and healthcare equity subject matter expert at the Equity Studio LLC. Her thing is epidemiology. And when we think about violence, it is a public health issue. It's an epidemic. And so it fits right into the subject. And of course, she talks about, how do we create strategies, right, to deal with these issues, not just pontificate on them. What do you do about them? And that's her work, is to create ways to address health equities within the marginalized community spaces. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my new friend, Kristen Hobbs.
Snap her up, Aaron. Let's snap her up.
Absolutely. Good. How you doing, Ms. Hobbs?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful. And thank you for it. This is your first time on the cutting edge, but it's not your last. I bet you that. Right?
I hope it's not my last. I want
right. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you want to say. Something.
I just want to say this because I'm seeing Kristen in Hollywood Squares again in a new role. Mm-hmm. For 2 years, she was our project manager for our National Minority Health Quality Forum campaign, bringing lupus education, colorectal cancer screening, diabetes to barbershops and salons, Aaron, in our training of barbers. And I've never met her in person, but Mayor, you had it just right. Her spirit jumps right through the screen, dedicated to the mission, and she takes this mission into the organizations that she goes into, which means we're there with her in her new job.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Kristen.
Absolutely.
Tell us what's been going on.
A lot has been happening. First of all, again, thank you for welcoming me to the cutting edge. This is my first time here, but I'm so excited that it won't be my last. It's definitely, what we're talking about tonight is definitely a public health issue. As Dr. Thomas said, for a while now, I have been working to implement public health interventions via a health equity lens. So I use health equity frameworks and social justice frameworks as well. And when I met Dr. Thomas and the UMD team, I was a director at National Minority Quality Forum, and I'm the director of implementation and research now at another organization. And one of the things that I'm really interested in all the time is how do we take the data that epidemiologists are always studying and surveilling and looking at and actually make it actionable for marginalized communities. And when I look at violence in marginalized communities and in the broader context of our society, it's really interesting to me that the research has not caught up to what we see every day in the news, as Dr. Thomas alluded to earlier. And so I'm really interested in learning how we can improve our research so that we can make a difference, and not just marginalized communities, like I said, but society writ large. And I think there's a larger conversation to be had about how these things, mass shootings, gun violence in our communities, how these things really wear and tear on our bodies, which is called in public health, we call that allostatic load. And it's basically that cumulative stress over time. And it can lead to poorer health outcomes, and it has lots of other effects as well across the board that we can talk about later.
So, Kristen, in some ways, the barbers and stylists who are listening to you may have people who's sitting in their chair who have witnessed, or a loved one has been touched. It's so common that many of us have been touched, even vicariously through the news, can also feel traumatizing.
Absolutely. I myself, one of my family members was a victim of violence. And I think it's something we all have experienced at this point in 2023, and it's ramping up over, the course of the months that we've only spent in this year. And so it's very concerning to me, and I think a lot of other public health practitioners.
Good. I'm excited to have this conversation. Welcome to the Cutting Edge. Let's bring up so before we get, because I want to get in this conversation. I'm chopping at the bit. We have another person who been with us. She's a person who needs, for those who've been around the Cutting Edge, probably no introduction because she's been with us on a few occasions, but always a pleasure to have Dr. Rabiatou Barry, who is assistant professor in family science at the University of Maryland. She did work in dealing with Black boys and mental health. So it really jives with what Aaron Perry is doing in terms of dealing with men, men of color or marginalized people. She has just a long list of accomplishments, too many to even name here because that'll take up the rest of the show. But her work, it has been dealing with Black men, and,
Yes.
and she has an interest in Black masculinity, coping with racism, gender, racial socialization, and Black youth. Ladies and gentlemen, please. I mean, that's fitting like peanut butter and jelly, or ham and cheese, or macaroni cheese. That it just fits, right? Dr. Rabiatou Barry, ladies and gentlemen, bring her up and let's snap her into the top.
Here we come.
Here you go into the cutting edge. Hey, Dr. Barry, how you doing?
Hello. Good evening, everybody.
So good to see you again, and to be here for this subject, because this is, for those people who don't know you, I'm going to do something as Dr. T oftentimes tell people just in snippet who you are, and then would you tell people how you got into focusing on Black men, because that's an area that a lot of people have kind of ignored, and you knee deep. I mean, you dove into this space, and I want to know what drew you to that calling. And it has to be, as I was talking to Aaron Perry and of course Christian Hobbs, all of you all have a calling, and what brought you into that space?
Professionally, I'm a psychologist. I'm a child psychologist. I specialize in childhood trauma. And I unfortunately developed a specialty in community violence because I trained in Chicago. And
wow,
before I knew it, more than half my caseload, and then almost all of my caseload, were impacted by gun violence. And so as I went through graduate school for 7 years, gun violence. And then when I did postdoc, gun violence. And so I developed a specialty that I didn't ask for. That came just by nature of where I was working. But my work with boys really is a calling. And I say that because I never intended to work with boys specifically. I just always found myself around them. So growing up, all my cousins were boys that I played with, and then I played basketball, and so then I always hung out with boys, and I was always intrigued by how masculinity started to develop over the course of life, and what it was like when we'd be like one-on-one. It'd be like me and one of my guy friends, and then we'd be talking, and it would only take one other boy to show up, and his whole demeanor would change. I was like, okay. And also recognizing what it meant to be a woman, or at the time a girl, in all boy spaces, and how I had to shift to be able to be in the space and not be disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the way to my training, I was like, oh, I'm a woman, I should study women. But for whatever reason, when I went to college, when I did volunteering, I was an America Reads mentor for all 4 years of undergrad. And every single year I got a little boy. Every year I got a little boy, first grader. It's always Black. And so it was just kind of that's.
Okay, I give up. It's got to be a calling now. That's what you said. I surrender.
But Dr. Rabiatou Barry, number one, I think that by letting us all know that you're working with the boys who become men, And that same transition you saw on the basketball court when one person shows up and you say, he changed. That one other male shows up, he changed how he related to me. Okay. As those boys,
himself.
Including himself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as they grow up to become men, this is my question. Is the perception that Black boys become men sooner than their white counterparts in terms of the perceptions? Because I see all these, and maybe the officers will speak to this, but some of these are young men. They may be tall, but they're kids, but they're perceived as men dangerous. When does that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Berry, and we open it up.
I think there's a couple of things that happen. And I'm going to use Ja Morant as a perfect example. So for those who don't know who Ja Morant is, he is an NBA basketball player. He's 23 years old. He's from Memphis. He plays at Memphis. And so he's in trouble right now because and this is his third occasion brandishing a gun on IG Live, Instagram and Facebook Live. He's never pointed at anybody or anything like that, but he's been caught brandishing this gun on Instagram and Facebook Live. And he's getting fined, and he's in very close danger of losing everything he's worked for. And it's interesting because when you listen to how people respond to him, it's very much this idea of like, he should be accountable. He's a grown man. He knows better, blah, 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 blah. And I've had to talk to people and be like, he's 23 years old. He's been a child for 18 years. If we're going to just go like chronological years of what we say an adult is, he's been a child for 18 years. He's only been an adult for 4, right? Mm-hmm. But because of the hostility of America, our kids do have to grow up a little bit sooner. Like in innocence and doing innocent childlike things have had lethal consequences for our children. And so our parents, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles push us to be more mature faster because they want us to live. And so we can't do pranks, right? You watch those shows around like Beavis and Butthead, these other like prank shows where like white men are running around doing pranks to strangers in the street. You know who you never see doing those things? Black men, because it wouldn't work, right? And so, it's those like kind of twofold where our kids are forced to really have to grow up sooner because it's a matter of life and death, particularly our Black boys. But then also what it strips their humanity from them and not allowing them to go through development like everybody else in a way that is harmful. Even if they don't become NBA stars, right? Even our, typical children, making someone 23 be grown when they're not for real. Where our development tells us that every other young adult frontal lobe isn't done developing yet, but our kids' frontal lobe has to be done developing is dehumanizing.
Let me ask this because, and I want this to be open to everyone. Mm-hmm. It's not about frontal lobe or chronological existence, because we have governors on campaign ads brandishing guns, right? Congress people, senators doing the same thing, and we don't talk about their maturity, right? Because we have a culture that says the Second Amendment is your right to bear arms. Now, whether or not you agree with it or not, he's in a state that's saying now, which is Tennessee, that you don't even need a license to carry a gun. So why do we give, why do we put more on him in terms of accountability than we do other people, to include lawmakers? I guess that's the question.
That's open.
That's open. Aaron and Kristen, I mean, help me out with this, because you got me boiling now.
Context matters.
Down here, everybody got a gun. The babies have guns. So, in fact, you give babies little pistols when they grow. When they first thing you give them is a BB gun or a water pistol. Help me out with that. Let's start with you, Ms. Hobbs, and then I'm gonna go to you, Aaron.
Yeah, well, I think just echoing everything that Dr. Berry said, It comes down to this white supremacist ideology that Black kids are adultified really, really young. And that we have to adapt to this notion that we're going to have to be, as our parents always told us, twice as better to get half of whatever. We're held to another standard so that that white supremacist ideology can continue to perpetuate itself throughout our society, and so that they can continue to villainize, especially our young boys and young girls, in ways that they would not do that on the reverse and to our counterparts. And I think about Tamir Rice, and I think about all of the very, 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 very young Black boys that were, unalived for existing in ways that white children just get to exist and get to be human. As Dr. Berry mentioned, we are dehumanized very early. And even for my own family, my husband and I are having conversations with our 4-year-old daughter about race and racism and how that, plays out in her preschool. These things are really, really serious. And it gets me boiling too, because I really began, there's a lot of talk on one side of the aisle about really paying attention to violence, but that attention is never paid in the reverse.
Yeah. Right. Aaron, thanks, Ms. Hobbs. Aaron, Perry, what you thinking, man, when you hear Dr. Berry lay it out, and you laid it out well, Dr. Berry, and so I agree with every word you said. It just hits you in the face, the hypocrisy. That's all. Go ahead, and double standards. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely double standards here, but I want to be kind of clear. If this young man did not have a $200 million, almost a $200 million contract, he will be another Black man waving a gun. Nobody's paying attention to him, first and foremost. And we know that. The other part is this other half is clearly sending a message that, oh no, the rules apply to you. They don't apply to us. We can wave our guns on social media because it's the Second Amendment. But with this young Black man having a gun in his hand, no. It's almost when LeBron James left the Cleveland Cavaliers, I remember feeling, why is they treating this man like a runaway slave? I really felt that in my heart. And now that we see this young man who could definitely benefit from some intervention because he worked hard to earn every penny that they're paying him. And we just need to wrap our arms around him, and not throw him away. But if he did not have that $200 million contract, we probably wouldn't even be talking about him tonight.
Well, if he had that same gun out in the streets, and and I know as a law enforcement officer, he probably wouldn't even be alive. Yes, because law enforcement people see Black men with guns as very dangerous people, where they may give other people passes, and we know that happened as well. So that's a double standard even out there without that $200 million contract.
Yeah, and if I could add this,
go ahead.
So I had a middle school kid, 6th grade. He said to me, Mr. Perry, do you think that because there's no money in Black men's health, that's why they forgot about us? And he said that, and I never forgot it, because this is and this kid has a very violent family. That's why we're trying to mentor him. But when he said that, I just remember thinking and struggling, this is a system thing, and as I think about what Dr. Berry was sharing, it's just so profound. And I used to be really good at coming up with solutions, but this one is really taxing us. And so I'm going to have to rely on the Dr. Berrys of the world to help guide us through this, because this is a tough one. My mama taught me once, she said, son, don't ever put anything out there that you can't take back. So I'm gonna shut my mouth right now.
One of the things, I told, and I was telling the team that I agonized over this show. And I at levels I don't normally, because we deal with this all the time. This is what we do. But because there's so many, as we talked about, layers and complexities, associated with violence, you know, in this country that was founded on violence, right? You know, I mean, violence is everywhere. And there's a lot of violence that's not associated with guns. Injustice is a violence. You see, and so we can look at it in a lot of ways, but I want to go to a place of this kind of cultural norms by which people are given permission to carry guns if you are of a certain hue or a certain demographic or a certain economic status, and it's okay. And when you aren't, then there's a double standard. I want to get back to that, and whether or not the culture of media have some influence over people glamorizing violence and gun possession. I want to go to let me start with you, Ms. Hobbs, and then we'll go to Dr. Berry.
Yeah, I think that we have, been brought up in a culture, again, back to what Mr. Perry was saying about the rules don't apply to them, they apply to us. I think it draws my mind back to the Black Panthers being the first group to really, really turn the Second Amendment on its head and say, well, if you can't protect us, then we'll protect ourselves. And that being an issue, right? And I think that when we talk about mass media and the propaganda that's played out, we hear, dog whistles like Black on Black crime, which we know is not a thing. We see Black men villainized at a very early age and being made to, as you said, be the big bad wolf, if you will. And so then it happens that on the other side, they're like, oh, well, we need our guns to protect ourselves from the others, which is not true. I truly believe that there are some of us living in this society that think they're at war all the time, and they're not. And I think that propaganda perpetuated in mass media really does a number on that societal norm.
I want to let me kind of reconstruct that question. What's this with this paranoia that they're out to get me, and this is fight, flight, or freeze kind of thing where people feel like they got to have a gun in order to protect themselves. I'm going to go to that, to Dr. Berry. Now, I know that if you live in a community or in a neighborhood or in a city where there's a lot of violence, there may be a tendency to say, I don't want to be in a pitchfork fight, and I'm the only one who don't have a pitchfork, right? And so this tendency, because I was told that just in the last month, there have been a 26% increase in gun sales of AR-15s and other assault weapons, just in the last month, with all of the mass murders that's taken place, right? Where they've had over 100 already, and we're just in the
May.
month 5 in May, right? Over 100 mass murders, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I can get the staff to look it up for me and give me a real number. But this notion that if everybody has one, I don't want to be without one. How is that permeate the conversation in the hood and in other spaces?
Well, I think so. For me, I don't want us to get derailed in the sense of starting to think about gun violence and its impact on Black youth, particularly Black men, and thinking about what's happening in white communities. And I say that because there's like in America, we always live in these kind of there's like two Americas. There's like Black America and like how we exist, and then there's kind of like everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. And I think where America comes in on the whole is that we have to remember America is a violent nation. The history of the nation is to respond to everything with violence, to acquire everything that this country has was obtained utilizing violence. Violence against Native people, violence against Africans, violence against Europeans. So violence is how this country comes to be, right? And so we are all impacted by violence, and that is the answer for how you solve problems, period, right? And then you add on how we construct things like masculinity and what men's role is in the world, what protection means, and how you protect your space, protect your family, protect yourself, right? And that became white man, gun in the streets, right? Fast forward to you add neighborhood, you add poverty, scarcity, right? And you create a space where people are fighting. It is a fight every day of like, how am I going to eat? How am I going to do these things? You exclude people from one economy, so they create a new one, right? And we think about like takeovers.
And then you criminalize that one they create, right?
And you criminalize it because when Sprint was acting funny, T-Mobile came and was like, don't worry about it. I got you. I'm taking it, right? That one little bank was having a little trouble and the other banks came and swallowed them up. Like these hostile takeovers, right? In essence, these are kind of some of the same things that are happening, at least in the beginning, in these other communities where a new economy kind of formed. And so I think we can't leave that part out, that like violence is the fabric of American culture. That's what it means to be American, is to be violent. And then we create a structural violence and impact this whole community of people by making things very scarce. And when things are scarce, people are going to find a way to get it. And also this protection piece, right? Where I don't want to get caught without a gun, because even if I don't plan on using it, it's all about signaling that like, leave me alone, right? And I talk about the disposition of our young men all the time. And when I work with them is like the disposition of hardness, right? Is not because they want to fight. Most of the time, they are afraid. They are terrified. They do not want to fight. They do not want to have confrontation. They don't want any of it, right? But they signal so people will leave them alone. And then if it don't work, now it's like, oh, now I have to use the thing that I have now showed, right? Because like, if you're going to show it, you better pull the trigger. And so like, it becomes this like cycle around how all these things impact how Black men, Black boys show up. And we really shouldn't be compare them to white boys, because it's not even like there's really nothing to say about how that works, but really just thinking about how some of those constructs that were created impact our boys because they don't work the same, and what the negative impact of them is engaging and participating in those things, like how to be men, what does it mean to be masculine, what does protection look like, how do you respond to fear. I think for me, like those are the things to talk about when we're thinking about community violence and gun violence, and not so much why Chad out here in the rural parts, whatever, is in Target with a pistol, because the AR-15 conversation really doesn't impact our kids. You don't find a lot of AR-15s in the hood. They got pistols, they got shot, they got handguns, 44s, 45. That's what they're using. We're, for the most part, Black boys are not running around the hood for the most part with ARs. Like that's just not their gun of choice.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Berry, I'm listening to you. I'm saying, boy, she knows the gun types too.
Oh yeah, I noticed she ran them down so quickly. I mean,
I'm also from the South,
like,
where I'm from Florida, which is an open carry state. So I've been looking at guns my whole life. So to your point around, there was always big old trucks with Confederate flags with gun racks on the back, big burly white man standing in front of you at Publix with a 45 on his hip, a revolver. Like these are things that are like regular, right? But it means a different thing than when my 15-year-old comes to therapy and he got a 44 in his waistband. Not the same.
But and I agree with you, but you have to realize that he's impacted by that and influenced by that. The other thing is too, I think it's important to ask the question, and this is a question I want to ask, and Mr. Perry, I want you to help me out with this too, because you all are not giving me a lot of hope for America. I just want y'all to know that.
We're still early in the show.
I'm going to get depressed. Hold up, here we go. Once something is baked in, like Dr. Berry is saying, that violence is at the foundation, it's the fabric of this country. Once something is baked in, can you ever extract any of its ingredients? Once you bake a cake, you can't get the sugar back out, or the flour or the milk or whatever it is, you can't get it back out once it's baked in. I guess the question is, Mr. Perry, is violence so baked into this country that we can't really ever hope to extract it?
You know, I come from that school of thought that everyone can be hooked. There's a hook. And as professionals, that's what we went to school for. That's what we're paid for. We're paid to find that hook and to hook individuals in and pull them to the other side. What I've learned in dealing with when I was working as a police officer and having conversations, every single time I put someone in the backseat of that cruiser, I would always ask this question, man, what could change to keep you from being in the backseat of this car in the future? And guys would talk about $100,000 in debt and child support. I have warrants that I can't pay. I have diabetes. I don't have no medication. I'm homeless. And I remember looking in that rearview mirror and saying to them, we can help you with this. This community can help you with that. You know, that's the hook. We just got to take our time to do that. In talking to these guys, I'm thoroughly convinced that if we can get these guys to move to the other side of their fear, they're fearful to give this life up. And if we can get them to move to the other side of their fear, I tell them, man, there's a whole nother life waiting for you over there. But the thought of just going over there, guys like, man, I gotta carry. I'm in the hood. I gotta carry. You know,
let me ask this, Mr. Perry. It doesn't matter what side of the town you live on, violence permeates everywhere, right? I mean, so it's not like, you know, it's just in the hood. Obviously, you know, there's violence in the hood, but we're seeing very affluent communities have mass shootings as well. And so the question is, what do we do about this notion that I have to take your life in order to revenge something or to settle some score or to deal with some conflict? Where do we get to that point where it's all or nothing? And I think that Dr. Berry said it, that they don't want to kill you, but once they do it and then you react to it, then they have to do it because they don't want to lose face or they don't want you to hurt them. So now it becomes a point of no return. So I guess the point that I'm making here is this is not relegated to Black people or to white people. This is a societal problem. And how do we get out of this as a society? That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, Mayor, the title of the show is Breaking the Cycle of Violence. And Dr. Berry, you're down there in Atlanta, where part of my career was there at Emory University, Rollins School of Public Health, when Atlanta was called the murder capital of the world. Okay. And maybe Meg can drop one of the articles that we published on breaking the cycle of youth violence. And what we found, Dr. Berry, is that many of the kids we worked with had members of their family murdered. Okay. Now there's hope here, Mr. Mayor, because you have to get to that truth, get to the hope, you got to walk through the truth of what Dr. Berry described as structural issues. And then the fact that in these communities, many of the murders went unsolved. And so every day, so I'm on the side of some people are doing the gun epidemiology, Mayor, what it means to have a gun in the home, increase accidents, etc. It's all about the gun, the thing. And I focused on the hand that might pick up that gun. So there's the hook, Aaron. And so the survivors, for every person that's maybe murdered, there are multiple survivors, and they're angry and they're afraid. And these kids had never talked about the fact that their loved one, it could be, like you say, Mayor, brother from another mother, friends that were as close as blood relatives, but nonetheless not blood relatives, but close friends. And they would walk in the neighborhood and literally see or walk by the place where the chalk mark was for the body, and they would see who they perceived as the perpetrator in the neighborhood, And that adds to the fear and anxiety. I got to get strapped.
Right.
So the hope is, we never said the word counseling. We never said the word therapy, but it was support groups, bringing kids together and giving them the safe space to actually speak their fear out in the open. And in so doing, have a little bit more control over it. I'm not a psychologist. You guys are therapists and psychologists. The point is, are there non-invasive, or we'll say, you're not giving somebody medication? Are there ways in which we can break that cycle by working with the survivors, the ones left behind who are angry and want revenge, and give them a hook to the other side?
Yeah.
The floor is open about where there might be hope.
Yeah, if I could add I used to think in terms of cycles. Now I think in terms, instead of breaking the cycle, we got to break the trend.
Okay.
Did you freeze?
That was Aaron just froze. But he is so right on the epidemiology. How do we break the trend line?
Yeah. He froze right on. It's like dropping the mic, right there.
That was a nice little pivot, though.
Yeah, we're gonna let him come back. Let's go to Dynamite Mike.
Come on, Dynamite Brown. Come on in.
Let's go. Come on, let's bring him.
Hey guys,
and then we're gonna get to, hey, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well.
Tell him who you are, man. Hey, come on.
I'm Mike Brown. I'm out of Hyattsville, Maryland, with the Wellness Warriors, the head program, Dr. T. I just want to add, the community that I'm in and what I came up in, this is like everyday thing. When people are shooting, getting killed now, it's becoming like normal. My thing is, why don't they put an effort into capturing the people who bring the guns in, on these gun laws? Like when they do a drug investigation, they start with the little man and go up the ladder. Why don't they go up the ladder when they find these guns and stop them from where they coming into the hoods and do something about it if they really care on that level?
And let me ask you this: is that one of them rhetorical questions that normally happen because they don't want to stop the guns, right? I mean, why you gonna come like that with us, right? You know better than that, right?
That's where you stop
the NRA, the gun lobbies, right? They have more gun lobbyists, right, in Washington, right? Because every time we do the fear mongering, every time we talk about taking guns, gun sales go up. They want you to talk about taking guns because that's when they get the sales. It's economics. And I think the other thing, and I don't want to be a member of the panel, but I feel passionate. Y'all stirred me up. So let me say this. And it's also fear of people becoming a minority and wanting to protect themselves in a minority status. I think that is part of it as well. Because they feel retaliation if they were, abusive in the majority. When they become in the minority, they think people will retaliate against them, and so they want to protect themselves from the impending phantom in retaliation.
They're arming us as well.
They're arming you because they know you gonna kill you, right? Just so what we do is we kill each other off in the foxhole, right? So we're not pointing guns at other folk. We're pointing guns at ourselves. And as long as that's happening, they'll give you guns because that's one less bullet they got to use.
Now, I don't want to be part of the panel either.
Well, come on, you might as well jump on in too, because I jumped in with both feet. So you might as well come on in. The water good.
So here's what I said, because I got real frustrated too, like where Mike is, some of my colleagues that were doing the gun epidemiology, Arthur Kellerman, one of the leading people. What the mayor said is absolutely right. It was in the late 1990s that the gun lobby was so powerful. They told the CDC, if you don't stop this gun epidemiology research, we're not just going to shut down the Center for Injury and Violence Control. We're going to shut down and stop the budget for the entire CDC.
Wow.
So for the past several decades, there's been restrictions on gun epidemiology. Okay. So we're up against that kind of weight.
Yeah, that
So
type of
so I said, what if we simply assume this? Let's accept the assumptions of the underlying structural inequalities that Barry's described. Let's accept the reality of living in Texas and people walking around with guns on their hip, that we're going to live in a society where guns are readily available, easily attained. If we accept that that's where we live, then what do we do to save our kids? And that's where dealing with the survivors, they're angry and they want justice. They don't see it coming through the normal systems, but they're going to get justice their way.
Let me
Can
ask
support groups, let me just see, can talk, and
people
support
are,
groups.
Dr. T,
help
people dealing with
people
this every day. It's
break
not necessarily they're angry.
silence.
They're talking about survival, right?
That was
And-
my rhetorical question for
well, you know, I know, and now you got it. Now we just might well take moderators off our thing and put panelists. Change it.
I just want to know, can we talk our way? Can we talk our way to safety? Can we love our way to safety?
I don't
No,
know,
I
Dr.
think
Barry. Well, you
Kristen-
want to say
I think-
something?
no, I
Help,
think Kristen
help
was
me
going
out.
to say something about the epidemiology. I think, like, when you brought up the gun epidemiology, she said she was going to jump right in there. I want to hear what she had to say about it.
Go ahead, Kristen.
No, I was, it's a specific law. I forgot the name of the law, but it is a law that, an amendment that was passed to, completely eliminate gun violence research, specifically gun violence research. Not any other violence with knives or anything else. And so we're not only fighting against that, but we're also fighting against legislators that don't want to change that, and they don't want to enact other amendments or other legislation that will then, as Dr. Barry was talking about earlier, reduce and eliminate the burden of inequities that we experience in our systems, where we have been consistently and historically excluded from all of those economic, social, and healthcare systems that would really remove the need to, be disenfranchised and fight for those scraps as well.
Yeah. So
And
you know,
so
go ahead.
therapy,
Go ahead.
So the thing about therapy is that a lot of things are required to be able to do therapy well. And one of them is empathy. And I think where there's a gap is that part of why gun violence in Black and brown communities has persisted for so long is because they haven't been classified as what they are: mass shootings. Mass shootings have been going on for forever. Because when you say mass shooting triggers a different kind of response from political arenas, from politicians, from CDC, right? When you call them mass shootings. But when you just call it Black on Black violence, nobody cares because that's y'all over there doing whatever, right? But the reality of it is everybody commits crimes against who's near them. And America is segregated. People generally live by who looks like them. So white people kill white people, Mexican people kill Mexican people, everybody kills themselves because we generally live with people who are like us, right? And so, but if you call it Black on Black crime versus a mass shooting, you elicit different kinds of responses and reactions. Had they been dealing with this as a mass shooting from the 90s when 700 people were getting killed in Chicago in 1996, there might have been a different response to gun violence. And public health and these other fields, medicine might have responded differently to mass shootings versus Black on Black crime because we don't care about Black people, right? As Kanye said before he became gay. So, but when we think about therapy, it absolutely can work.
Okay.
It will work, but there are things that we have to be invested in. Funding, right? So I just got a grant from the University of Maryland to develop a family-based intervention for youth who've been injured by gun violence in the hospital.
Stay right there. Let's snap that. She got an award to work in. Come on. Every little bit helps.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Barry.
You talking Dr. T's go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the thing about it is that it's a captive audience, right? The child has been injured by gunshot. A lot of times when you go into hospitals, the providers come, they talk to the child, like the medical providers, And then like social workers or case managers will come in and they'll hand out the parents some papers, like here's some counseling you can get in the community, and that's it. Nobody prepares them for what it's like to go back into the community that they just experienced violence. No one prepares them for what it means to go back to school. No one prepares them for how the injury might impact their actual household, right? There is no preparation for any of that. They just send them home and wonder why they never come back. Well, right, this has not been a space that has been healing or supportive, right? And so in this idea of doing like acute treatment, because we know we do have research that says all people, but Black people in particular, will engage in therapy if and only if we, in the first 2 to 3 sessions, determine that it is helping us. It doesn't have to be like you've solved all of our problems, but in those first 3 sessions, you can establish rapport and tell us or do something with us that we feel is impactful and useful. They will engage. We will engage, but we have that research, but people aren't utilizing it, right? And doing acute emergency intervention, because we respond well to that. Because Black people as a group, once we like something or somebody, we like them. Once the community is like, we mess with such and such, we don't care what such and such did. We still down for such and such. So that as a community, once we latch on to something, we're in it, right? But there hasn't been effort to understand what hooks us, as the man said before. What is a hook that will hook us? And what will hook us is giving us something that will work sooner rather than later. We don't have time for in 6 weeks. No, I need something now. Give me something now that can help me and my family as we transition and deal with whatever this thing is.
So the question has to be, and we're gonna do a check on our blood pressure, called the word cloud. So I don't want to check my blood pressure right now. I don't want to do that. Let me say this. There's something that's interpersonal in terms of how you're dealing with something, but when you're talking about cultural violence, right? Then isn't that a different thing? And I want Ms. Hobbs and Mr. Perry and Dr. Barry to do this, and then and my wellness warriors, I want to bring you all in the conversation as well. But we're not just talking about how I deal with and respond to violence, right? Which is an interpersonal thing. But how do we reduce violence in the community that I have to deal with? I mean, I think those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves as well. I'm gonna go with you, Mr. Perry, and then with you, Ms. Hobbs.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, sorry about that. We had a little power outage here. So, what I was saying prior to going off is, I look in terms of, instead of trying to break the cycle, we try to intervene with these young men, and we try to break the trend. Breaking the cycle, I find it's very difficult. It can take a generation. It can take time. So we just focus on just interrupting those trends. And I'll give you a great example. We were really struggling with our 8th grade boys who just decided they wanted to pick up a firearm. What I determined in working with them, I picked up 7 of them. I said, I want to mentor these boys. I'm going to stay with them until they graduate. I'll never do that again. It's just too hard. Just keeping it real. It's just too hard. But I got these boys, and what I'm learning now, so I've had them for a few years. And when I say about breaking the trend, what we did with these young men is we first understood what was going on with their older brothers. Who was the role model in them? Okay. Who is that person that they look up to? So we started there, and then we started focusing on what I looked at was the suspension data for these young kids. And I determined that because they're in the 8th grade going into the 9th grade, they can't work here. They're too young. They can't get a worker's permit. And so for that entire summer, that's when we see these kids picking up firearms, sneaking out the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, just getting really just buck wild, challenging their moms. I'm the man of the house. You're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. You can't be man of the house. So we started working with them. We developed It's called Black Men Run, Brown Boys Read. We got a bunch of guys in the
Hold up, you said that fast. You slow up. Black men,
Yes.
say
Black men,
slow.
yes, Black Men Run, Brown Boys Read. If you Google it, we started this program here in Madison. It's since been replicated in Nashville, Tennessee. I promise you, if you Google it, you'll see a winning tradition. But what we did is we started working with our Black Men Run guys, the older dudes, and we started mentoring these boys, and we put books in their hands.
Wow.
And so we got together with them twice a week. So we read for 45 minutes. And then after we got done, we ran or walked for 30 minutes. We fed them, we took them home. We were killing that primary time where these young kids get in trouble. The great thing that came of that is we've given them something to do between that 8th grade and 9th grade year. What we found is that when these boys enter their senior year, if they enter their senior year just criminogenic mindset, that's when you see that trend last into their entire senior year. And when they become seniors, you know, the school kicks them out because they already got the federal money for them, so they don't need them anymore. So they kick them out. What we've decided to do is intervene in their life, give them something to do between that critical time. And I believe we're missing the boat. That critical time is between the 8th grade going into their senior year. If they can start their freshman year on a good footing, you will see that trend last throughout their high school career. If they come in with that criminogenic mindset, you're going to struggle with them for their entire high school career. And that's the trend that I'm referring to that we broke. But Google Black Men Run, Brown Boys Read, particularly the Nashville, Tennessee chapter. And it's amazing what we're doing with these young kids.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Dr. T.
Just real quick, because Aaron is trained in law enforcement and has come into this arena, but what he just described is an intervention. It's not randomized, doesn't need to be randomized. He can trust his own eyes. And I think that transition is so important because they're going to another school. They're the low one on the totem pole, and it's tough. I really think you're onto something. It's a diversion. And if you can get them diverted into the right trend, you're saying that can persist throughout their high school career and put them in a better place.
Yeah.
End up someplace other than jail.
And we're going to also talk with Dr. Berry and whether or not that's too late, because a lot of what people formulate is before that particular time, 8th grade even. They're being exposed to things now at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old and 9 years old, Mr. Perry, that we weren't, we were seeing cartoons and things like that. They see murders on TV and the culture and the music and all of that. So I don't know whether or not, and certainly it's a good idea, but maybe the intervention needs to start earlier. What do you think?
What I've seen is those young people, our young men, we're still able to redirect them.
Okay.
I truly believe that once they get to that, middle school, that's when they start to challenge. That's when they start to struggle. That's when, unfortunately, some of the moms tell them, "You're the man of the house now." This is what they're being told, and so they try to own that. But again, they're still redirectable. You can still redirect some of those behaviors. But again, once they hit that high school, we continue to lose them. Either they made up their mind that they're going to be successful, or they just don't know what they're going to do. And sometimes we tell them, "Did you just show up to school just for the Wi-Fi, or are you here to learn?" We got to have those real conversations with them.
Sure.
Mayor, let's get that pulse beat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Let's go ahead and tee it up, Dr. T, and then we'll go from there. And then we have.
I know. So let me tee this up.
I know Meg gonna be angry with me.
We in the pandemic. We on the other side. The emergency has been released. but we're still seeing the after effects. Think of the word that best reflects how you're feeling right now. At this moment, drop that word in the chat. For those of you out in social media world, you can use the Q&A box. Just drop that word, and for the next 60 seconds, drop as many words as possible into that chat, and the team behind the scenes will build a word cloud. This is a heavy conversation, but there's a silver lining there, Mayor.
I know you're gonna find it. If it is one, I promise you. If it's a silver lining, you'll find it.
Let me just say this. I saw what Aaron saw. We got them if they had members of their family that had been murdered. So the mothers of murdered children and the kids in a support group. Okay. And Dr. Berry, we didn't have a psychologist, but we just let them talk it out. And in many ways, they healed themselves. It was a diversion. It was called Kids Alive and Loved. And it was a mixed group. We'd have seniors, some of the little toddlers and babies would be there. And Aaron, at a moment, you see these tough guys taking care of the baby. They needed an opportunity to show empathy. They'd help grandma make sure she didn't trip on the steps. They could show empathy. They could show another side of themselves. And I think that helped them. But when they got back out on the streets, they had to put on a whole different set of armor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's do this. One thing, Dr. T, we got 14 minutes and we hadn't even talked to a wellness warrior yet.
Let's bring more than one up.
Yeah, let's bring up Dr. Cooper, and then we're gonna bring up Sandra Jenkins and then Dorothy Reynolds, and then we're gonna bring up Katrina Randolph, and then we're gonna bring up Michelle Lamb. If you can put your thing on, we're gonna in that order, so everybody kind of you teed up now. Okay.
And what do y'all see in the chair? Go ahead,
Dr. Cooper. This. I'm just gonna let you wax eloquently, whatever your feelings are. I don't even have a question for you. Go ahead. Tell them who you are, and then what's your thoughts about what we've been talking about?
I am Sharon Gibbs Cooper. I work for the University of Maryland. Dr. T has been my mentor. Privilege of working with the Wellness Warriors. I work on the other side of this. I work on diversion programs, which are evidence-based programs. They use our software to track and monitor behavior. The programs itself, they focus on the underlying or contributing issues that bring them into the criminal justice system, that bring them into treatment agencies. So they take that approach, the whole person approach.
Now, who's they?
This is the Office of Problem Solving Courts in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
And
I even like that subject. That topic, the way they say it is different. That's a different kind of approach, I guess.
There are over 62 courts that exist in the state of Maryland, designed, again, evidence-based diversion programs designed to, again, when I train people to use our technology, you want people to not only step into your program, but you want them to leave better than they began your program. And how is that done? Through that case management model, understanding, like we have talked about, the common thread, empathy, making them participant as far as making it participant-centered, engaging family, engaging community, because you're not only looking for short-term results, but you want sustainable results after they leave the program. And using those community support services, whether it's treatment, social services, employment, family, whatever are those factors as identified earlier that brought you into that criminal justice system, getting those resolved and having the proper tools and resources that are in place to do so.
Wow.
That's deep. We need to have you as a guest to unpack that some more. So we're going to, although you one of us, we Dr. T and I got to be panelists today. You going to be a panelist too.
But I like that diversion, what she's describing, because Aaron's doing the same. He's just getting them in the barbershop before they get to the court.
Exactly.
Right.
And so again, the purpose is to reduce that recidivism and break the cycle of behavior that brings them into the criminal justice system, that brings them into treatment agencies. And the programs, and I'm just going to make it real short, look at not only mental health courts, veterans courts, truancy courts, juvenile drug courts, adult drug courts. So it's a whole gamut. And again, addressing those particular needs of individuals, and not only persons who are involved in the criminal justice system on the other side, but those providing substances as well. And using those innovative programs, which were started by our vice president and modeled after that here in Prince George's County by our county executive, bringing that here to improve the quality of life and social functioning.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you.
All right. We got who's next? Oh, Sandra Jenkins. I said Sandra Jenkins, and then we'll do
Dorothy's here.
Dorothy. It will be next, and then we'll do
Michelle Lamb.
Michelle Lamb. Okay, so now we get everybody's coming up. Okay, Sandra Jenkins, go ahead. Just I'm out
She's
of
in Philly. Go ahead.
Just you're in the Philly area. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell them who you are.
So I own it by Sandra Jenkins. I'm from Philly, and I own Naturalist Hair in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I'm also a community health worker and a stylist, and I prioritize on not only the aesthetics of someone's hair, but also their overall health and well-being. So what I like to say on this panel tonight in this discussion, as Mayor Neal likes to say, and Mike used in terms of his means of trying to get his point across, and that is get it where the cows can get it, right? That is common sense. This whole thing has a lot to do with common sense. Raising my son as young Black male, being stigmatized, being called names like they would make say like they would say things, I'm sorry, like his hair was very bushy. So they would call him black sheep, have you any wool? Or yes, or 3 bags full. So these are the things that start to stigmatize our children as we move along. And I would always tell my son, hey, Alex, listen, it's common sense. Do the right thing. Okay. That when someone agitates you or whatever the case may be, how to address it. And this is what I share with my clientele. My clientele have children that are going off to college, and they're talking about these major issues that revolve around safety issues on college campuses. These are the discussion topics that we have in the salon. And that is first and foremost, as parents, is really to provide the common sense and knowledge with your children, emphasizing that. And all of these resources that Aaron Perry and Dr. Barry and Kristen Hobbs are sharing, if we had these access in their salon, these resources in the salon that we can share with our clientele, that would be magnificent, because of the fact that people want to see themselves. People don't want you to be there to constantly reprimand them on what they need to do and how to do it. You have to actually share those life experiences with them. And I find that to be more impactful. And that is to be real, common sense, and get it where the cows can get it.
Man, wow.
An Omarism.
Right.
You got it. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go down to Pine Bluff. Dorothy Reynolds. Hey, Miss Reynolds, how you doing today?
I'm fine, Mayor Neal. How are you today?
Fabulous, wonderful. We Dr. T, he always brags on you. I don't know. Do you pay him to brag on you as much as he must be on the payroll.
He's all right with me.
Thank you, Dorothy.
And then you go give him some snaps too.
Let me just say this, and Dorothy, I want you to speak. Aaron, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, you're looking at a warrior who went out into the group of young men, unafraid, and talked to them like a grandmother. And guess what, Aaron? They listened to her.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dorothy.
I'm Dorothy Reynolds from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and I'm co-manager of Elite Cuts Barbershop and Impressive Styles Beauty and Barbershop. And yes, as Dr. T said, we're in the middle of downtown, and the side streets are behind our shops. And so right down the street is Subway, where kids come. So I get to see them. And I'm in and out of the schools, and some of them recognize me before I recognize them. But then we have, it's something about that thing over your head that say, okay, to the kids, she's okay to talk to.
What do they call you? What do they call you, Miss Dorothy? What did the kids call you?
Well, some of them have started calling me grandma. Dorothy.
Well, when they start having that kind of endearing
Yeah.
messages, they're gonna take care of their grandma.
You
Right.
know that.
So you in good shape. Let me see. We got 6 minutes. Thank you so much. I got to try to
But
get
can I
to.
say?
I want
can
you
I
to say
say
something.
Yeah,
Please
go
say
ahead,
something.
Dorothy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that once in Pine Bluff, we had a program that was called Get Real About Violence. And it started in the elementary school, Mayor Neal. It started in elementary school. When I left in 2000, they threw the baby out with the dishwater. And now violence is just everywhere. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Department of Ed stopped the funding for safe and drug-free schools in 2005. So that took away the money. And they call it funds for bullying, but I think they need to bring it back for safe and drug-free schools. So that was what I was gonna say. And Officer Aaron, we need one in every county. So you be waiting because I'm going to be reaching out to you.
All right, I love the connections.
You got the
right place.
model here. Thank you so much, Ms. Reynolds. Let's go to Michelle Lamb in the Cincinnati area. Hey, Michelle Lamb, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. I just
Good.
want to say I'm Michelle Lamb here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I own the Airport Barber and Beauty Studio. And I'm a lady barber, so this was very informative for me because I work with those age groups. And one thing I've noticed about young Black men or young boys or whatever, only thing you have to do is show them you care. That's all you have to do. And that's what I give them from behind my chair. I show them that I care. I'm a disciplinarian. I keep it real with them. And I see the growth because I've been in the business for so long. So I see the growth in them. So this was very informative for me.
Thank you so much.
Keep doing the right what you're doing because that matters. They know you care.
They know I care.
You know the theme is Dr. D, you see empathy being
Yes.
the thing in caring. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And that's what it's about. All right, thanks so much, Miss Lamb. Katrina Randolph, let's go to the and she said Maryland area, the Maryland area.
Hey, Katrina.
I think all of you know me by now, but I'm Katrina Randolph. My salon is in Prince George's County. And I just want to say thank you, Aaron Purry, for your leadership program that you started, because we truly need more of them in neighborhoods. Because so many times, especially where my salon is, I see a lot of mothers trying to raise boys to become men with the absence of that father role model in the home.
Wow.
So we definitely need that. And a lot of times they try to raise these boys up to be tough without nurturing and giving them and teaching them anything. So a lot of times they grow up in this hostile environment. And that's why they get into gun violence and get into the trends of what's going on in the community, because they grow up feeling like they need to protect themselves. So thank you for starting your program. Although it's tough, it is rough, keep it going because we need more programs like them. I've always tried to get my husband to start a program, and I told him to name it Boys to Men. He's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So I commend you for
if not, he can start a group anyway. You know?
He is a DJ.
Yes.
Oh, he's a DJ.
But we need more Black father role models in communities, because it's so unfortunate that so many Black men grow up in homes with just single parent families. And it's only a mom most of the time. So we want to thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much.
And it's good to see you, Kristen.
You look at you, just it's just a family reunion. That's all this is.
So Mayor, the cloud's ready. They can bring up the cloud while we're talking.
Bring up the cloud, and I think we got. I think we got everybody. Change inspired, right? Think about that.
Look at that.
Right. Well, if you
even with a heavy topic.
Yeah. Well, people are inspired when they get information, and when we got to talk this stuff out. I think it's the internalization of the trauma that does the most damage. I think when we talk it out in a way that we're in a comfort space, right?
Yes.
You know, although people are listening to us from wherever, and we don't know where they're listening, but at least while we're together, we feel we're in a comfort space with each other. And that's important, to be able to talk to people who will listen to you, one, and hear you, not just listen to you, but to hear you and truly try to understand your truth, your lived experience, and then to challenge you, right? To think beyond maybe how you were thinking, to consider other areas. That's what we do here. And so if you look at it, common sense, it's getting where the cows can get it, challenged healing, anxiety, community-led, thankful, knowledge, concern,
Yes.
innovation. I mean, collective, grateful,
Yes.
smart intervention.
There you go.
Right?
Smart
Right?
interventions.
Right? Hopeful, collaborative, confident, powerful, motivated, and there's some anxious people out there.
That's
as well,
right.
you know, but you know, for the most part, we are inspired because we see a change going to come.
And that
right?
says something for a topic like this.
Right.
To leave people
Absolutely.
inspired.
Right.
Can you
And
believe how the time has flown?
it's flown? And I'm going to apologize to Meg Jordan. She had a power. She had
Yeah, we have a
public health-
Narcan.
Yeah, the Narcan.
Public Health Minute.
Meg, how long is your Narcan Public Health Minute?
I can do it now.
Do it now. I want to. I don't want to leave you out.
Yeah.
We'll just take. We will go over. I'm a point of personal privilege, Mr. Dr. T. I'm going to give Meg a few minutes to do this because she's prepared. Go ahead, Meg.
And it saves lives. Go ahead,
Right.
Meg.
Go ahead, Meg. You got the power.
Hi, everybody. So, Wellness Warriors, you all got these Narcan kits in the mail. They have 2 parts. So, I'm going to go over the parts really quick.
Let's go ahead and spotlight Meg.
Yeah.
You can keep talking.
Okay. Sorry, that's usually me. So there's 2 parts. This is the nozzle, right? And then you got a box. In the box is 2 other things. So this Narcan kit has 3 pieces. Tip, medicine, tube. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify the person who you think is overdosing. So they might be passed out. They might be extremely sleepy. They might be kind of in and out. You might not be able to shake them to get their attention. If you think you are around somebody who is overdosing, the first thing you do is call 911, because the operator is the person who's going to be able to give you the most on the spot advice about what you need to do. The second thing you do, you keep them on the phone with you the whole time. Second thing you do is you get your Narcan kit. Okay. So 3 parts. I'm not going to rip this because it would ruin the kit, right? But first thing you do, you take the tip off. These are perforated. I don't want you sitting here trying to pull it apart like it's a McDonald's toy. You don't need to do that. Perforated right here, right? Okay. You're going to take the tip out and it goes in here. Anything with colored plastic on this kit needs to come off. Tip comes off, and that's where the nose tip goes. Okay. So you're going to screw it in, and then you're ready to put the medicine in. So this is the medicine, and it has a purple lid. Colored plastic, it's got to come off. This is what it looks like on the inside. You see the gray plastic?
Yes.
That's what keeps the medicine in there, and you need to puncture that to be able to get it out. It goes in the back here. You take off the yellow back, and then you can put this in like this. You're going to push down and you're going to screw it in, and then it's a live syringe.
Wow.
Okay. So try that a couple times before you're going to need that. Do that over and over and over again until you feel like you can do that quickly. So what you're going to do next is you're going to administer the Narcan. So the person is going to be sitting or maybe on the ground laying down, but you're going to put the tube in the person's nose, and you need to get it in. You can't sit it on the edge. You need to really make sure it's in the person's nose because it needs to get into their bloodstream, right? So you're going to put the tip in their nose, and you're going to press down on the back of the Narcan until it's half dispensed. You're going to do it in one side. You're going to put the rest in the other side. Okay. You're done with your kit. You can get rid of it. Tell the 911 operator that you're doing this as you keep going. So now the Narcan is in the person's nose, but you need to make sure that they are positioned correctly. You need to roll them away from you because you do not want to roll them around you, right? So their back is to you and you're going to bend their knee because you don't want them rolling, right? It's like when a person's passed out from alcohol, you don't want them to choke, right? So you're going to put them on their side, but you need to make sure they don't roll. So you bend their knee, you bend their elbow, and you tuck their hand behind their ear so they don't, especially if they're on concrete, they don't hit their head, right? So, okay. So recovery position, and you wait until the ambulance arrives. The other thing that's very possible is if the person stops breathing, you need to tell the 911 operator and they might talk you through CPR, chest compressions, something like that. So identify the person, call an ambulance, administer the Narcan, monitor the situation until the paramedics can come and they can take over the situation. So practice your kit. Keep these on you. The other thing you need to know is that if the person is still not responsive after 3 minutes, you can give another person a dose of Narcan, right? You're not going to hurt them. The other thing is, say they're not actually overdosing, say something else is going on, like they fainted or something else, you are not going to hurt them if you give them Narcan. Okay, so this is not, you're not going to cause an issue, right? So that's what you need to know about Narcan. The instructions are also on the box. And if you have any questions, we work with the National Institute of Drug Abuse and we can get more information for you. So
thank you, Meg.
Thank you, Meg. We wanted to make sure that we got that in because that could very well save a life.
And Mary, you should know that the Wellness Warriors just got care packages with Narcan. It literally can save a life. You can't hurt anyone with it. We're going to follow up with that in the newsletter. We'll find some other instructional videos that we'll make available because our barbers and stylists are in communities where they're literally witnessing people go through this, and you can save a life. Good. Well, time sure flew tonight, man.
It did, and time well spent. Let's bring up our guests before we leave. We can't just leave people. We have to have a proper farewell.
Kristen.
I mean, just bring everybody.
This is how we close out.
This is how we got to close out properly. We got to bring people to the house and then just kick them out. Let me thank you all for this conversation. Obviously, it's not a conversation you can have an hour, right? And really exhausted. So I'm going to invite you all back now to come back at some juncture where we can continue this dialogue. Obviously, it won't be exactly the same because, we'll have new information and there'll be different ways that we frame the issue. But we believe that if you properly frame the issue, then people will gravitate to take care of themselves. And when people get the right information, they then do what's right about themselves, and how you frame the issue determines who embrace the cause. So thank you all so much to Kristen Hobbs. You, man, it was just so wonderful meeting you. I mean, you are everything they said and more. So it's wonderful. Nice meeting you, Ms. Hobbs. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for everything. Aaron Perry, man, it's been long. Don't stay away this long any longer, man. All right.
Thank you.
Brother and our friend, we love you so much. Thank you for all you doing. Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Barry, I mean, you just so incredible. Good gracious alive.
We quote you.
Glad. You're just incredible. Thank you so much for what you do. You just add so much contexture to conversations. You're able to put context into conversations in ways that many people find it difficult doing. So it's sobering the way that you present your information. And so thank you so much for all that you do, both seen and unseen. Got it. Much love to you. Dr. T, To my wellness warriors, you all are incredible. Keep doing what you're doing out there. You're saving lives and you're making a difference. Dr. T, you just got an award. What was that award, Dr. T, you got?
Well, I just got an award of Practitioner of the Year from the School of Public Health. And Dr. Barry was there.
Hey, let's snap him up a little. You know, let's give him some snaps. You know,
recognizing the barbershops can make a difference. Public health practice reimagined.
Right, wonderful. So congratulations, Dr. T. Well deserved. So with that said, you know, we are 9 minutes over.
Wow.
And you know, and that's okay, because you know, sometimes we have to do that, right? So thank you all so much for everything you do, both seen and unseen, as I always say. And always remember these two words. Remember that I love you with the perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. Until the next cutting edge, I'll see you then. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You got the power now.